Om Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Go Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Welcome to our special question and answer session. A little introduction about why questions about the bhakti process and Krishna are so important. We can go to the first 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 1. And Pritchett Maharaj has presented to Shukadev Goswami many questions about Krishna's pastimes. Why did he do this? Why did he do that? Why was Balaram transferred to the womb of Rohini? Why did Krishna leave Vrindavan and go to Mathura and Dwarka? And in this way, by his questions, Pritchett Maharaj is setting the scene and instigating the flow of transcendental nectar. He's agitating for our benefit. This duo of Shukadev Goswami and Pritchett Maharaj, are especially suited for giving the highest benefit to all who are fortunate enough to take advantage of their conversations, their dialogues. Let's begin by reciting a verse I often meditate on, the 14th verse of the first chapter of the 10th canon. Spoken by Sutta Goswami, who, of course, is relaying the conversation between Shukadev and Pritchett. He's relaying that to the sages at Naimisaranya. As you know, Srimad Bhagavatam is a compendium of nested dialogues. One dialogue is nested in another, which is nested in another. Sutta uvacha evam nashamya brigunandana sadhuvaram Vyasaki sa bhagavana tu vishnuratam pratyarcha krishna charitam kalikam shakanam Vyahartum Arabhata Bhagavata Pradana. Sutta Goswami said, O son of Brighu, Shonaka Rishi. After Shukadev Goswami, the most respectable devotee, the son of Vyasadeva, heard the pious questions of Maharaj Parikshit, he thanked the king with great respect. Then he began to discourse on topics concerning Krishna, which are the remedy for all sufferings in this age of Kali. So we can immediately note how the one who's answering the questions, Shukadev Goswami, is thanking the questioner with great respect. As we often explain, in Bhagavatam, both the questions and answers are important. So just don't jump over the questions when you're reading and think with a typical Western mindset, I just want the answers. The questions inform you. The questions of Bhagavatam are not just stripped down, abbreviated queries devoid of any helpful content, and therefore you just have to wait for the answer. No, the questions are loaded with information and they lead to development of ecstatic love for Krishna. So once again, you have Shukadeva Goswami thanking with great respect Parikshit Maharaj because of Parikshit Maharaj's questions. And what is the nature of the discourse they're going to have, the dialogue? I love meditating on these words. Krishna Charitam Kali Kalmasha Ganam talks about Krishna are the perfect remedy, indeed the only remedy for all the sufferings in this age of Kali. Now think about that, please. Questions and answers between these two persons solve all the problems of Kali Yuga? Is this just some kind of bhakti exaggeration talk meant to make us enthusiastic in our sadhana? No, we need to scientifically understand how questions and answers about Krishna get to the root of all miseries. Instead of just trying to solve immediate causes of problems, questions and answers about Krishna get to the root of all problems. But because people don't see that, they think, oh, you're wasting your time. You're just lost in some spirituality. You're lost in the clouds. Meanwhile, we down here on the ground are struggling to make real progress and truly solve the problems. But the problems aren't solved materially. You stop one problem and the problem's grandson comes. You stop that one and the grandson's cousin comes. All the problems are just multi-branched, showing us, and indeed, it's time for humanity to start understanding that material solutions will not suffice. As material nature is pounding all parts of the planet with freak weather, freak storms. You may have heard me explain a week ago how just in the Kumyu area of the Radhagiridhari temple, just 5 minutes away, second most rainfall in recorded history fell in 24 hours, over 200 millimeters. Yet, a half hour away at the Auckland airport, they only got 20 millimeters of rain. So here's Kumyu flooded. The streets are flooded. The main road through Kumyu was flooded in parts, and businesses were put out of action. Yet, half hour away, practically no rain. So the mayor of Auckland was lamenting, said, we've been so preoccupied with drought. And now we get all this unprecedented rainfall in 24 hours. This is happening everywhere. Wildfires, bushfires, droughts, flash floods, storms. Nature is showing us that unless we deal with the ultimate cause, we'll never solve all these immediate causes of problems. So therefore, Krishna Charitam Kali Kalmasha Ganam. We need the greatest medicine that can truly solve all the problems. And I don't know about you, but this is why I took to bhakti. In my studies at university, among the greatest professors of the world. I could see after 4 years, they had no solution. And they admitted that. So when I heard that Srimad Bhagavatam presents itself as the solution to all material problems, I was immediately interested. And we have this combination of Shukadeva Goswami and Pritchett Maharaj. Their combination, their teamwork destroys Kali Yuga. The Acharyas explain their teamwork destroys the sins of Kali Yuga and also destroys Kali Yuga itself. Their conversation also destroys confusion about what is the ultimate reality. What is the best process for the highest attainment? Their conversation destroys all quarrels about the supreme absolute truth. Now, one question before we start with our own question and answers session, one question raised by the Acharyas is where Shukadev and Pritchett Maharaj are speaking, that assembly, you have persons in the audience of different mentalities. Now, Krishna Lila is kind of confidential. It's personal, just like you have your personal secrets. So Krishna Lila is meant for comprehension by the devotees. So how is it that Shukadeva Goswami could speak Krishna Lila to an audience that was not unanimous in its understanding that bhakti is the topmost? This is the whole reason why Pritchett Maharaj wanted to do something about the divergent views in the audience. He had asked, what is the best thing to do? Especially the best thing to do in the circumstances of someone about to die. And he could detect that there was not unanimity in the audience. You had elevationists there, those who wanted to elevate to the heavenly planets. You had impersonalists there, those who wanted liberation into impersonal Brahman. You had mystic yogis there who wanted to develop Ashtasiddhi, the mystic perfections. So Pritchett Maharaj, being shrewd, wanted unanimity, and therefore he welcomed Shukadeva Goswami. And Shukadeva Goswami is so expert that he was able to speak in such a way that all listeners would be reached. Remember Prabhupada's prayers, Markine Bhagavad Dharma, written upon arrival in the USA. How will these people ever understand? And of course, humbly following in his footsteps, we're still thinking like that. How will these people ever understand? In fact, how will we ever understand? But Srila Prabhupada writes in his prayer that because Krishna is the supreme mystic, he can make it all possible. Because by Krishna's will, the jivas are in Maya. So therefore, by Krishna's will, the jivas can come out of Maya. And remember Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto. He's giving instructions to schoolmates born of demoniac parents. Yet Prahlad Maharaj could reach them because he's a devotee with no taint of the material energy. So Shukadeva Goswami is going to speak now. Sri Shuka Uvacha. Samyag Vyavasita Buddhis. Sava Rajarshi Sattama. Vasudeva Katayam Te. Yajjata Naistiki Rati. Srila Shukadeva Goswami said, "Oh, your majesty, best of all saintly kings, because you are greatly attracted to topics of Vasudeva, it is certain that your intelligence is firmly fixed in spiritual understanding, which is the only true goal for humanity. Because that attraction is unceasing, it is certainly sublime." Shukadeva Goswami is certifying that Pritchett Maharaj is the right person to ask questions. His questions are based on unceasing attraction for Krishna. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada makes the bold proclamation that Krishna Katha is compulsory for the executive head of government. Tell your prime minister that. She says she's an agnostic since her 20s. And she doesn't want religion getting in the way of her governmental decisions. As we explained before, what people think is religion, spirituality, yes, we would agree. We don't want that getting in the way. Nevertheless, we need to understand what is real Dharma. That's required for the executive head of state. As Prabhupada writes, Krishna Katha must be understood by the executive heads of government, for otherwise, how will people be happy and gain relief from the pangs of materialistic life? This requires deep thought. How will people be happy without Krishna Katha? You would agree, they're certainly not happy now, although they try so hard. But how is it that Krishna Katha talks about Krishna will solve all problems? This is what I want you to think about. So finally, before we get to our questions and answers, Shukadeva Goswami explains in text 16 that just like the Ganga purifies the three worlds, the lower, middle, and upper planetary systems, similarly, when there is discussion of questions about Krishna, three varieties of persons are purified. The one who asks the question, the one who answers the question, and the audience as well. So now, let us begin. Who wants to recite the first question? I see the chat box is loaded up, but maybe someone wants to speak live.
Hare Krishna.
I'm listening.
Gurudev, by our service, we are aiming to please Krishna. And Krishna says that he is more pleased when his devotees are pleased. How to manage it? For example, when I cook for the devotees, how much should I inquire about the preferences of the devotees? And how much should I take guidance from the scriptures and descriptions of what the Lord likes to accept? Thank you.
You can cook very opulently for the deities, but if you cook opulently every day for the devotees, probably they'll get sick. Although much as they'd like to eat opulently 3 times a day, as you probably have observed, they don't have the ability of Krishna to digest anything and everything. Krishna can eat the whole universe if he wants, but he just asks for a leaf, fruit, flower, or water with bhakti. So, unless you're totally transcendental, you probably cannot process very rich food day after day after day. What I do every day, if it's available, I take a tiny bit of maha from the deity here at New Varshana, the deity offering at the Raj Bhog. 12 o'clock is very opulent, saturated with ghee and sugar and white flour. Krishna's got no problem with all that. But if I lunch after lunch eat like that, I'll have problems in my service. So I have to eat in order to serve Krishna better, not eat to impede my service. So what I do is what Srila Prabhupada suggested. Once a week, you have a knockout feast. Of course, what I call a knockout feast, what they serve me on such occasions, you'd probably consider austere. But anyway. Once a week, I let the cooks go for it. I call it my deviation meal. Otherwise, I eat simply. And if there's Mahaprasad from the deity available, I take a little bit. It's all about the quality of your honoring Mahaprasad, not the quantity. But that realization takes some time to develop. So prepare prasad for the devotees, except for festive occasions. Then you can go for it. But for daily prasad, yes, take health into account because we're tiny jivas. Our potencies are limited. And so we have to always consider how we can serve Krishna best. But there's Sunday. I've sampled the Sunday prasad at the Soul Fest. It is phenomenal. And then when we have Friday night and Saturday night programs, the prasad is also very wonderful. But day in and day out, you want to eat honor prasad in such a way that your service is not affected, so that you don't just doze off for 2 hours after lunch. Mm. Anything else?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I'm wondering if there's particular material tendencies as we go through our 40s and 50s that we should be aware of that might divert us or dull us in pushing forward in bhakti.
40s and 50s. You're not as adventurous as you were in your 20s. And if you're not careful, you could start materially thinking of making a permanent place in the material world. When you're in your 20s, you're young and adventurous, spontaneous. But as you get older into your 40s and 50s, impermanence starts to threaten you. Oh no, I've got to do something about impermanence. I need stability, security, a foundation, a fortress. That's why, according to classic Vedic civilization.
Mm.
By the time, especially a man, according to classic Vedic civilization, note I said that.
Mm.
By the time, especially a man is 50, he's done 25 years of household life already. And therefore, the Vedas say, Pancha Sordvam Vanam Vrajet. Time to go to the forest. Time to retire from family life.
Mm.
Those were the classic Vedic days, of course.
Mm.
But the whole system had a point that before this whole fortress mentality takes over you at the age of 50, especially,
Mm.
you're retiring from your family responsibilities and preparing for the inevitable separation.
Mhm.
That's classic Vedic civilization. Of course, these days, we're just so happy if a couple will stay together all their life. Oh, praise the Lord.
Mm.
They didn't divorce. Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Bol.
Mhm.
As Shukadeva Goswami explains in the 12th canto about Kali Yuga, Daksham Kutumba Bharanam. In the age of Kali, if two persons can have a family with one or two children and successfully maintain that family, they're known as superbly expert. Whereas in Bhagavatam, you read about families and dynasties of hundreds and hundreds. But the age of Kali has reduced the potency of everything. And so therefore, if a small family unit can be successfully maintained, all commendations are showered upon such a tiny family unit. So yes, in conclusion, as you get into your 40s and 50s, you start digging in, trying to barricade yourself from the ravages of the outside world, Kali Yuga. Your body will start getting more fragile. You start thinking about the fallible soldiers, as Shukadeva Goswami says in the second canto. Deha patra katatradishu atma sanyeshu satsupi tesham pramato niranam pashandapi napashyati. You surround yourself with your army. I've got my people. I've got my dynasty. I've got my squad. I've got you, babe. Everything's going to be all right. That really starts to take a hold of you. The male strength starts to fade. The female beauty starts to fade. And so therefore, more and more, you think of economics, residence, all those kind of things, which you hope will protect you from the ravages of time and ultimately protect you from death. So you asked, and I sought to explain as best I can.
Thank you very much.
Anything else?
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. It says that Krishna says that as one becomes more dear to him, he takes away their material attachments. Sometimes, now obviously everything will be taken away from us at the time of death. I guess sometimes this notion can create a little anxiety or fear that if I become too close to Krishna, everything might be taken away. I guess what's the proper way to understand this statement?
Krishna's name is Hari, but we only remember one meaning of Hari. He takes everything away. Oh no, that means I'm going to be ruined. That's why so many people in India, they say, better worship Shiva, better worship Durga. Krishna, you don't know what he's going to do, but at least Shiva, Durga, you'll get material benefit. But Krishna, he just gives love. Who wants love? Well, everyone wants love. So Hari means he who takes away all the barriers and gives you ecstatic love. But we're so attached to our situations in this material world. We think, oh, Krishna will take away my house. He'll take away my car. He'll take away all my boy toys. Live simply and save time for your bhakti. Don't be afraid of Krishna. Be afraid of the illusory energy. How about that? Our real problem is we have no fear of the illusory energy. As I was explaining to an audience in Sydney last night, we have no fear of time. We don't even have awareness of time passing. I gave them a whole talk about the theme was bhakti now or later? Is time on my side? So the intelligent person is afraid of Kala Shakti, the time factor, Kala Chakra. As Prahlad Maharaj says, the time factor is like a wheel that's crushing you with past, present, and future. And we're so foolish, we think, oh, I'm all right. Let me be happy. Meanwhile, the Kala Chakra, also known as the Samsara Chakra, is pulverizing us, but we don't see it. We're being ravaged, exploited, beat down, but we don't see it. Therefore, Shukadeva Goswami in the second canto says, Pashyandapi na pashyati. You surrounded yourself with all these fallible soldiers who can't protect you. You're sufficiently experienced, but still you do not see what's happening. Even though you're experienced sufficiently, you still don't see. So I explained to this audience in Sydney that instead of being crushed by time, the bhakti yogi knows how to conquer time. Even a new devotee is learning techniques to spiritually be immune to time. The body is material. It's going to go its own way, whether you're a devotee or a non-devotee. But we're not the body. We're spirit, soul, and our engagement in devotional service protects us, the real person, from the ravages of time. Our bhakti show will go on, regardless of the change of body. And increasingly, we'll realize that we're not the body and that our eternal essence is devotional service to Krishna, which is outside the clutches of time. Anything else?
Hare Krishna. Sorry, Prabhu. It seems like inattention is one of the biggest struggles for unsteady practitioners to overcome in our japa when we chant the holy names in kirtan as well. I'm just wondering, is it possible to have like a long-term plan to overcome this and steadily deal with inattention?
You said it. Have a long-term plan. It's a career. How to chant Hare Krishna. If you're serious about that career, you'll arrange your whole life in that way. Whatever decision you make about your lifestyle, you're thinking, how will this affect the quality of my chanting? In other words, don't treat your chanting, your daily chanting, simply as some side dish. No, it's the main meal. Anything else before I look at the chat box?
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. I have one question. Sometimes we see some devotees very steady and very fixed up externally, and then in very short time we see their devotion is standard and loosens. Why is it like this?
Because their mind is not absorbed in what they're doing. As Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings, Manasa Deho Geho Yo, Kichur, Arpintuya Pare Nan Kishore. Everything I have, mind, body, home, everything, let it be engaged in Krishna's service. So yes, sometimes devotees are very externally engaged in service, but their mind is somewhere else. They have to deal with that. I mean, we can be like that in the beginning, but just like in relationships, I've heard householders say that one partner can tell when the other partner's mind is not into the whole scene. Krishna is the supreme person. He knows when you're lazy about investing your mind in what you're doing. So therefore, we want to be very attentive with our devotional service. That means, as you would say, not spacing out, meaning you're thinking always, I've been appointed to do this task by Krishna. Let me execute it to the best of my ability with full attention at every step. Whether it's distributing books or cooking or managing, everything about bhakti. We're praying for absorption. That's the key.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj, it's Harriet here. How are you doing?
Harriet, Hare Krishna, I see you.
Hare Krishna. I just got a question, I'm sorry, we came on the call late. So we just, the current political situation is so sort of horrific. And
Where?
well, just, I suppose it's mainly in the media.
Media of which country? You know, this is the planet Earth. Are you talking about little New Zealand? Or are you talking about the West Island, Australia? Or
just New Zealand, I guess, but it seems to be a global sort of takeover, whatever's going on. I don't know, but it's very hard not to get sort of carried away in the whole drama of it all. Have you got
why is
any
it so
advice?
hard? All you have to do is accept the obvious, that human beings, no matter where they are on this planet, have no idea what they're doing. You accept that and you'll be peaceful.
Thank you.
You missed the part in the beginning, no doubt, where we were reading from 10th Canto Bhagavatam, where Prabhupada writes in a purport that Krishna Katha is compulsory for the executive head of state. Otherwise, how can that executive head of state keep the people happy? The planet is being ravished by Kali Yuga, the activities of Kali Yuga specifically. Until you solve the root problem, you'll not be able to effectively deal with all the immediate causes of problems. So please think about that. Whether you change this, whether you make this political change or that economic change or that environmental change, you're dealing with polluted consciousness.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. Maharaj, we understand philosophically that we need to put Krishna at the front. and keeping Krishna in our consciousness, do all the activities, but still tend to carry it away with the day-to-day material duties, and we still try to remember Krishna, but it's just that it seems like that the material life is overpowering Krishna consciousness sometimes. Understand philosophically that mind has to be engaged always while doing the duties, and also try to put Krishna at the front, and chanting has to be done first. But still, sometimes struggling that material life is overpowering business. So, what can be done? Because philosophically understanding the situation and what needs to be done, but still feels difficult.
It's all about association. Associate with those who are enthusiastic, and you'll have your best opportunity to be enthusiastic. Of course, with these lockdowns, the way we associate has changed, but somehow or other, always try to associate with enthusiastic, determined devotees, and that will make your own enthusiasm and determination much easier. You become like whom you associate with. So when you're feeling a bit beat down by the material energy and its complications and complexities, talk to some devotees who can inspire you. And if nothing else, you can always just chant Hare Krishna more. There's no law preventing you from chanting more. But maybe as a working person, you don't have so much time, you think. But this is the lockdown, where you are in Melbourne, where we are in Auckland. Maybe in other parts of New Zealand, outside of Auckland, they have what is called level 4 with takeaways. That's known as level 3. So options are restricted, but you can utilize this lockdown in Krishna's service by finding more time for hearing and chanting, time that normally you wouldn't have. So in that way, you can turn what is an austerity into a benediction. Okay, I'm going to look at the chat box now. Krishna Loka asks something about Bhagavad Gita regarding the Chaitanya Leela with Chota Haridas. And Lord Chaitanya banned Chota Haridas from his association because he looked lustily at a young woman. But the question goes, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says he asked for rice from an old lady. That's true. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was seizing this incident to make a very strong point. Even his associates were baffled. Even Paramananda Puri, who's senior to Mahaprabhu, went to ask, like, isn't this too severe, this punishment? And Mahaprabhu said, look, I can just leave here. And Paramananda Puri was, wait, no, we don't want you to do that. And then he said, all your activities, I know all your activities are very grave and hard to understand, but they're meant for benefiting the whole world. So Mahaprabhu was wanting to make the very strict application of the standard, an application that if we applied it today, none of us would be around. But you have to understand that Chota Haridas is an eternal associate of Mahaprabhu. So therefore, he was always associating, but in a different way. So this pastime is very deep, and it gives us insight into how the depth of Chaitanya Leela is bottomless. Sometimes Prabhupada was asked that Lord Chaitanya would reject wayward associates. Will you do that? And Prabhupada said, I am not Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I'm thankful for whomever Krishna sends me. Hmm. Okay, what's actually happening when we chant? In your Adhastami class last year, you spoke about the loving exchange between Hari and Hara. Could you expand on this subject? Tune in to our talk on Radhastami. Okay, here comes a perennial question. How can we be more sincere? Well, that's only everything in the books, you know? From your heart, you prayed to Krishna, how can I act more for your pleasure? That's sincerity. And all the activities of bhakti produce that sincerity. So if you want to be more sincere, that means authentic. Then in your heart, you're constantly praying to Krishna, how can I act for your pleasure? That is the beginning of real love. When Lord Vishnu, oh, this is from Dinanath. Where is he? I'm looking for him on the screen. Oh, I don't see. Ah, no, that's Gaurarti's family. And Nitai and Krishnananda. But where is now I see him. Okay. Whenever Dinanath asks a question, the whole world takes note. His father, Gopinath, is beaming proudly in the background. That's my boy. No, it's Krishna's devotee entrusted to you to raise so that this is his last appearance in the material world. All right, Dinanath. When Lord Vishnu entered the mind of Vasudeva at the time of Krishna's appearance, does it mean Vasudeva was thinking of him? Vasudeva is always thinking of Krishna. But this is special. The Lord who is about to appear from Devaki enters first the mind of Vasudeva and then transfers himself to the mind of Devaki. In other words, Krishna's appearance is not the product of some kind of biological combination. You don't understand that stuff yet. You're too young. So, Now bear in mind, Dinanath, that Krishna is everywhere. So even if you say he appeared from the womb, you don't know what that is, from the tummy of Devaki, just like you were once in the tummy of your mom. Even if you think like that, he's everywhere. Andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam govindam adi purusham tamaham jami. He's present everywhere. So he can appear from the mind, the womb, the tummy. He can appear from a pillar like Lord Nrsingadev did, right? His appearance has nothing to do with the material world. Ajopi Sanavyatma, Bhutanam Isvaropi San. Prakatam Swamadishtaya. Sambhavami Atmamaya. I come my own way to the material world. I'm unborn. I have an inexhaustible body, non-different from me. I'm the Lord of all sentient beings, all conscious beings. Still I come. How do I come to the material world? I do my own thing. Only Krishna can say he does his own thing. Meaning his entry, his presence in the material world has nothing to do with the material energy. No taint, no touch. Got it? You understand? Okay, your mother and father can explain to you more. And they'll relish so much hearing you talk about Krishna. And in that way, all the bad effects of Kali Yuga will be destroyed. So you'll get to experience that, Dinanath, in your own home. Hare Krishna. Okay. I'm new to the practice and have just increased my rounds from 10 to 16. I'm finding it hard to stay awake when I chant in the morning. How can I overcome this? Well, it's a very complicated solution. Try going to sleep earlier at night. As I often explain, contrary to the materialistic mantra, the nighttime is the right time. No, the bhakti yogis, we understand the nighttime is the wrong time for being up on late hours. You take rest early, get up early. The morning hours are so precious for chanting Hare Krishna. So we have to rest enough so that we stay awake while chanting. That's the proper way to gauge our resting. I want to be awake while chanting. So the time we rest can vary from person to person because everyone's body is different. Sometimes there's illness. Sometimes there are those days which are very exhausting physically or mentally. But if you have a set goal, I'm taking rest at this time and getting up at this time, you'll find that 90% of the mornings you can execute in that way. There'll always be the haywire mornings where something happens beyond your control. But set a standard for yourself. I'm going to try for 90%. Maybe 6 days out of 7, I'll be on target. And you'll see the difference. When we are so immersed in forgetfulness, will we ever be able to remember Krishna? That's why chanting Hare Krishna is so important. It cuts through the fog of forgetfulness. It's our lifetime occupation. More and more we'll be conscious of the sound Krishna dancing on our tongue, entering our mind, and from there, resonating in our heart. A question: is sadhana bhakti above devotional service in the modes of material nature? Yes, if you are actually properly executing sadhana bhakti. You can't just haphazardly do it or inattentively do it and expect the full result. I often tell the story, and you probably heard it before, told to me by one of my godbrothers. He said that he was on a morning walk with Srila Prabhupada and brought up that part in the third canto, Lord Kapila Dev's instructions, where you find out about devotional service in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So this Prabhu asked Prabhupada, does this apply to your devotees, your disciples? Prabhupada was walking this cane, click, click, click. And then suddenly he stopped, hearing the question, does this apply to your disciples? He stopped, paused, looked at the questioner and said, who is my disciple? And so the devotee had to think quickly. He was a bit stunned, taken off guard. For a while, he replied, your disciple is someone who follows your instructions. So does Lord Kapila Dev's presentation of devotional service in the modes of nature apply to such persons who follow your instructions? Prabhupada looked at him and said, no. So you can think about that one. How do we invest not just our body in devotional service, but also our mind and heart? As I said before, by always thinking how to give Krishna more pleasure. It works, you know? That's the beginning of love, when you're always concerned how to give pleasure to the beloved. For those of you who are shastrically inclined, Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains the basic difference between the conditioned soul and the liberated soul. He says that the conditioned soul is always searching for its own happiness, but the liberated soul is always searching for Krishna's happiness. I have that reminder on one of my habit-forming apps on my phone. Today, have you consciously searched or thought to search for Krishna's pleasure? I would say that it's definitely the basis of my consciousness, but I want to be more and more onto it. So I have these prompts on my phone. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Have you thought about Krishna's pleasure? You have to use technology as best we can. If we have it, we use it. If we don't have it, we don't lament. How can we safeguard ourselves from Maya robbing our bhakti enthusiasm to improve and increase our service? If you really are thinking in that way, you want to safeguard yourself. Always be around where there's devotional service. Like if you're a business person, you always want to be active on the share market, where there's trading going on, where there are deals happening. If you're a doctor like Nalini Kant, you need to be at a medical establishment. Or if you're a dentist like Rasika Nanda, you obviously have to work at a dentistry place. That's where the action is. So similarly, devotees always look for where there is devotional service as their number one consideration. They're after devotional service opportunities, and they're after inspiring association. They're after good kirtans, and they're after tasty prasad. From verse 4th canto, chapter 22, text 39, we learn from the 4 Kumaras that one, that's not clear. She's talking about a verse about stopping the waves of material desires, how bhakti can do that. Otherwise, by other methods, stopping the waves of material desires is not possible. So she acknowledges in her question that devotees have this higher advantage. It's very difficult to understand this question. She's asking basically, will it happen automatically that we stop material desires? Autopilot in bhakti takes a long time. We want to be proactive. We want to be aggressive. We don't want to be lazy. Therefore, we constantly beg Krishna. And chanting Hare Krishna is all about begging Krishna. What sort of impediments does an older devotee need to look out for in their devotional life? Familiarity with hearing and chanting. I've done so much chanting. I've done so much reading. I've done so much hearing. There's nothing new. When you start to feel like that, it's a good sign that we need to beg more to go deeper. Just like sometimes in family relationships, after 20 or 30 years of marriage, it can seem that the thrill has faded and the relationship becomes very brittle, like steel wool. So in the old days of Western so-called civilization, I remember back in the 50s and 60s, at least in the USA, they would have various places where couples could go who were in their 40s and 50s. They could go to these places to rekindle their relationship. Sometimes they were called dude ranches. You ever heard of a dude ranch? It's like a imitation Wild West place where couples go and they ride horses like cowboys and they do all kinds of pioneer, frontier, Wild West activities in the comfort, of course, of a resort. And they're called dude ranches. And couples go there to just meet other couples who are also feeling like their petrol tank has run out. And in that way, they spend a weekend or a week and revive or try to revive their appreciation of each other. Another option back in the old days of Western so-called civilization, another option was called the second honeymoon. Of course, these days, in New Zealand, at least, no one gets married, but so there's no question of a first honeymoon. But second honeymoon means let's go on an event, a cruise or something, to try to bring back the loving feeling. So how do devotees do that in relation to Krishna? When there's no COVID travel restrictions, we go to Mayapur Dham, Vrindavan Dham, and recharge our batteries. Srila Prabhupada went through so much ordeal just to give us a base in the holy dhams so that we could recharge. Because life in the West really grinds you down, pulverizes you, despite your best efforts. Outreach can be agony and ecstasy. They're great breakthroughs and they're great setbacks. People surprise you, people disappoint you. So the holy dhams are there to recharge our spiritual batteries, to refresh us. So that's the best way to revive ourselves. I struggle reconciling the fact that we are being pushed around by the three modes of nature with the fact that we have independence, even minute. I wonder if the answer lies in what we desire. But how do we rise up to use our free will in the best way possible when we are shackled by the modes of nature? The modes of nature are shackling your body and mind, but you are not the body and mind. And when you follow the instructions of the Shastra, you're overcoming the modes of material nature at varying speeds according to your intensity. Krishna is throwing you a lifeline that cuts through the modes of material nature. You grab it, and through parampara, you're connected to Krishna. So you have to distinguish between you and your mind intelligence and false ego. By learning to desire what Krishna desires for you, that's the best use of your free will. That's perfection. Let Krishna enjoy. May that thought pervade our life. Let Krishna enjoy. How can I assist in Krishna's enjoyment? At the top portion of the spiritual world, the most cherished position is servant of the servant, not to enjoy directly with Krishna, but to assist Krishna's beloved in her relationship with Krishna. Such intimate devotees pray that they don't even want to be the friend of Srimati Radharani. They want to be her assistant, her maidservant, to help her in her pastimes with Krishna. That is the most exalted aspect of the spiritual world. How to properly express gratitude and appreciation to seniors who have helped us spiritually. Just open your mouth and say, thank you. You know, you really helped me. I can never forget it. I can understand the question because life in the West can really be devoid of gratitude. And unfortunately, that syndrome can affect devotees. You don't thank anyone for anything. You take it all for granted. It's all automatic. If you would express gratitude to anyone who's helped you in your spiritual life, even if later you have a disagreement with that person or you're not as close as you used to be in the past, still, what's wrong with expressing gratitude? And by your expressing gratitude, the person generally will feel inspired to reach out and help others, do more service. Everyone likes appreciation and gratitude. So if you just say, thank you for taking the time to do this or to do that, the person feels inspired. Oh, let me take the time to reach out in other ways of service. But when there's no gratitude, in fact, when there's condemnation, then the person feels so deflated. Oh, I put all this energy in. I went out of my way, and this is how I'm being treated. Mm. I was just reading where Prabhupada was speaking in Mayapur, saying that actually to spread bhakti is very difficult. Maya is very strong. And therefore, Trinadapi Sanichena Tarodava Sahishna. You'll have to be more tolerant than a tree and humbler than a blade of grass, because you're not going to be appreciated all the time. So he was speaking. He said, it's difficult. But we endure for the sake of Krishna's pleasure. And that's why Krishna says no one is more dear, nor will there ever be one more dear than the one who teaches others to approach him. And through that following of Krishna's order, we develop love. When you get to the point of doing something for Krishna in which you could say, for me, I would never do this. I wouldn't do this if it wasn't for Krishna. I wouldn't do this if it weren't for trying to please my spiritual master. When you get to that point, that's very nice. Then you start to understand what is pure bhakti. You get a glimpse, just a glimpse. Of course, in the beginning stages of bhakti, we're trying to please ourselves within Krishna consciousness. Karma yoga. That's all right. That's fine. But gradually we become purified and we just want that Krishna enjoys the way he wants to enjoy. And we aspire to assist him in that. How far have we actually come in attempting to establish real human civilization since Srila Prabhupada's departure? And how much more progress is expected to be made by his grand disciples? We've just established a small doorway. There's so much more work to be done. That means you have an opportunity as grand disciples of Srila Prabhupada to get the credit. Just like his disciples had the opportunity to be the pioneers, you can get the credit for taking what's already been done to a higher level. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Nimitra matram bhavyasavasaj. Arjuna, you can only be an instrument. The outcome of the battle is already decided. Victory or defeat should not be your concern. Mamanusma yudjam cha. Fight and think of me. So you have an opportunity to get credit. Bhaktivinoda Thakur could have spread bhakti all over the world, but he left service for Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who left service for Srila Prabhupada, who left service for us. So I tried to convey in my Vyasa Puja offering to Srila Prabhupada how comparatively, in terms of morality, primitive morality, and appropriate social traditions of stability, primitive stability. When you look at the times when so many Prabhupada disciples were young, the 50s and 60s, compared to what's happening now, those old times are like Dwarpa Yuga compared to what's going on now. There was some primitive sense of religiosity and proper behavior. Teenagers didn't go off the wall until they were 18 out of high school. It sounds like a joke now. One young devotee in high school in New Zealand was telling me he's 16 years old and he's asking what to do. Girls are just coming up to him and saying, "Why don't you come over tonight at my house?" Or, "Can we find an empty classroom right at this moment?" It's just so bewildering. He's in class trying to focus on the lesson, and everyone's on social media or some chat app, and he's getting messages from the girls around him at their desks. Maybe we ought to get it together, He's trying to concentrate on the lesson. This kind of stuff back in my youth, it didn't go on. I remember in my neighborhood, everyone went to church on Sunday. Generally, the mothers didn't work. They were at home with their 3 or 4 kids. What middle-class family could live like that today? With just the father working. So there was some primitive understanding of religion, morality. You could call it meat eater morality, but still there was something. But these days, everything is thrown to the wind. So simultaneous with the increased degradation is the spreading of bhakti throughout the world. During Prabhupada's time, there were very few. He had very few Indian disciples, very few. He had thousands of American and European, Australian disciples. Thousands. Some New Zealanders too. But very few Indians. Now it's the reverse. India is filled with hundreds of thousands of devotees. Millions. And in the Western world, we're struggling a bit. There'll always be some struggle, and that's good for us. We're never going to have it easy. We have our chance how to please Krishna and go back to Godhead. Let's get credit from Krishna. It is said how Maya is compared to a razor blade, one slip and there is blood. No, spiritual life. This is an example from the Upanishads. Spiritual life is compared to a razor's edge. You have to be careful while shaving. One slip and there's blood. I know because for environmental reasons, I've stopped using those plastic cartridge razors. I'm trying as much as practically possible how to reduce my ecological impact. So I stopped using those disposable cartridges or disposable razors. I use an old-fashioned metal razor with the old-fashioned double-edged razor blade, which actually are much more effective for shaving. Your face takes a couple of weeks to get used to it, but they're more effective, but you have to be very careful. You can't just, men will understand this. With a plastic disposal razor, you just finish. you don't have to focus. But with a double-edged, old-fashioned razor, just one turning of the razor slightly the wrong direction, and you get it cut. So you have to concentrate more. So that's where the example in the Upanishads comes about spiritual life. Razor's edge, one slip and there's a cut. So yes, as one popular saying goes, the price of liberty, the price of freedom is vigilance. Because we're so affected by tamoguna, the mode of lethargy and ignorance. We don't like being alert. Seems to be a hardship, right? To be alert in bhakti. Why do I always got to be on guard about this? Watch out for that. I just want to kick back and just let things happen. Now, the passion may come, the ignorance may come. So what? But gradually, as we advance, we realize that we have the greatest treasure and we want to safeguard it. Sometimes momentarily, glimpses of extreme peace and surrender are realized during chanting or looking at the deity, which make me cry spontaneously. But right at the next moment, the heart becomes like stone. These feelings start disappearing, however, after effects of these emotions stay for long. Don't understand that sentence. How to understand these emotions? Are these sentiments connected with mind only? Kindly explain if you desire so. Nectar Devotion talks about abhas, shadow ecstasy. Some very slight remnant of devotional advancement in the past. And come and go very quickly. It's not the real thing, it's the shadow of the real thing. So we shouldn't become proud. Suddenly, some tears may come to our eyes. Suddenly, our heart may throb. These are indicators that we can make more progress, that we are dealing with the spiritual reality. These are feelings, these are the tip of the iceberg, as the saying goes. We never think that we are so advanced. Oh, I'm crying spontaneously. We always think, I'm not doing anything for Krishna. I should be doing more. And we're begging Krishna's representative. Krishna is your property. Please give him to me. Krishna prapti hoya hoite. I'm picking and choosing, don't mind. Is bhakti progressive? If bhakti is progressive, why does it feel that almost every day we are starting from square one? Maybe someone is starting from square one every day. We have to make more advancement. And then when we look back, we think, I was nowhere before. And by Krishna's grace, by my Guru's grace, I'm somewhere now. I've often said how a devotee has the opulence, the great wealth of being able to look at his consciousness, just in the preceding year, last year, and thinking, what was I doing? What was I thinking? I was nowhere. That is real wealth. Just the previous year, when you think about it, you're wondering, I was out of it. I didn't know anything. Because bhakti is ever fresh. And that means with each step you make in bhakti, you're like a newborn child. Krishna is Nitya Nutana, ever fresh. And as a super soul in your heart, he makes the bhakti experience. The bhakti experience is ever fresh, but the super soul in your heart allows you to see that. Matasmitiya Gyanam Apohanam Cha. From me comes all perception of knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. Can householders practice pure devotional service when there are so many activities to be performed that are indirect? Well, no matter what ashram you're in, you've got to take care of your body. You've got to clean your facility. It's true. We can observe that household life can involve a lot of activities for maintaining and pushing on the ashram. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, whose appearance day is coming up very soon, around September 18th or September 19th, he shows inconceivable expertise. He had what, 13 or 14 children? Anyone want to try that? Gorarti? 13 or 14 children. And one of his children, of course, was Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the ray of Vishnu that Bhaktivinoda Thakur prayed for. He describes in his song, Shuddha Bhakata Charanarenu, that one evening he's performing arti in his home and he sees his whole house turn into Goloka Vrindavan. He's showing you the peak potential of household life. So there are different levels of householders. I think our householders know all about that. Some want to go back to Godhead in this lifetime and conduct themselves in that way. Others are not so proactive, shall we say. So everything depends on what you make of your situation. We encourage everyone. We don't want to discourage anyone. Some householders are more attached materially, some are less. We encourage them all. We don't try to be some kind of investigative department trying to see which householders are following strictly the path of going back to Godhead in this lifetime and which aren't. Now, household life has that license. You've got that spectrum of variability. Your spiritual life can slow down to a complete halt as you just tread water. You could sink, or you can move forward. So we should be mature in our understanding and expect that there'll be householders at different levels. It's not easy all the time for them. Sometimes there's not agreement between the two spouses about their level of spiritual dedication. Mm. We have many wonderful examples in New Zealand of dedicated householders. Very grateful for them, for their presence. They're determined to keep Krishna in the center, Krishna's service as the number one priority. And although they have businesses or work or family affairs, children, they always try to hold Krishna's service as their number one priority. So I've been at it for an hour and a half. You don't want me to become exhausted, do you? It's been wonderful sharing this question and answer session with you. We can do this regularly, especially as, at least in the Auckland area, the lockdown proceeds. Whereas, as I said, for the rest of you, it's level 4 with takeaways, otherwise known as level 3. Not much difference. Now, of course, the latest hypothesis is level 2 plus. Uh, these are difficult times materially, but we can use the situation to propel our spiritual life. So let's not become frustrated and annoyed and cranky. Let's try to find the silver lining in the cloud. So I thank you all very much for your kind association. It's wonderful seeing you all. And we'll be celebrating Bhaktivinoda Thakur's appearance day. We'll be celebrating Sri Radhastami. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.